In November of 2023, the Swell Pod took a 10-day journey across 5 states, traveling 3,580 miles with one challenge in mind.
And that challenge was to interview 100 pleasantly rebellious humans to uncover deep truths about what it takes to create something that has never existed before, challenge the status quo, maybe even change the world.
This is the Kiln Road Trip, created and produced by the Swell Pod.
In partnership with Kiln, Moterra Camper Vans, and sponsored by Taurus.
I'm Spencer McKeown.
And I'm Josh Taylor, and together we're the co-hosts of the Swell Pod and your guides on the Kiln Road Trip. Follow along on the journey.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow the Swell Pod on social media, and subscribe to your YouTube channel at, you guessed it, the Swell Pod.
This is interview 73 of the Kiln Road Trip, and today we're at Kiln Portland in Oregon talking with Cy Cain. Cy is the co-founder and CEO of Straightaway Cocktails, award-winning cocktails that do good. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome, Cy, to the Swell Pod and the Kiln Road Trip. Thanks for being one of the 100.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Honored.
Yeah.
Welcome to Portland.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Do you want to so for our audience, for our listeners, can you just introduce yourself and tell us what you do and what you're passionate about?
Yeah, my name's Cy Cain. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Straightaway Cocktails. We're based here in Portland. We're 2 blocks up the road from this location. So this kiln spot ended up being fabulous for us. We came to building this brand as either a hobby gone wrong or a hobby gone right, depending on how you look at things. Just giant dyed-in-the-wool cocktail fans. We were at-home mixologists that had gone way down the rabbit hole of cocktail making. And if you came to our house, we'd be hosting you guys and squeezing juice an hour or two before you got there and making bitters and simple syrups the night before. And then just getting up and making drinks as you guys made your way through the evening at our houses. My co-founder's Casey. He'd do this as he hosted. I was doing it as I hosted. And we just had a super big passion for cocktail culture and hosting and surprising and delighting through the power of a properly made drink. Yeah.
How did you meet Casey?
Casey and I met through a mutual friend. It was a college roommate of mine, and he ended up getting to know him through their wives. And so Casey and I probably met. Neither Casey and I can put our finger on exactly when we met, but we think it was roughly 18, 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. You said surprise and delight, interestingly, and also hosting friends, mixing drinks. And I know Spencer and I are both very interested about surprise and delight moments. And we've even had some that you've asked for throughout the different trip. And is that something that you really try to think about as you're bringing people over to your house and things like that? And I don't know.
Yeah. Portland food and beverage is so important to the city. As you guys spend time here, you'll see that. Like, we just take it really seriously. And I think that's what's so fun about what we do, is dispelling the myth that you can't make a really great, amazing, properly built pre-batch cocktail in a bottle or a can. And that's what we set out to do from the word go. Like, we wanted to honor these amazing bartenders and bars here in the city and the other places I'd traveled to. We consider those folks to be artists, and they're creating alchemy in a glass. My favorite place in the world to be is in a stool on the other side of the bar in the hands of these master mixologists. And I think for us to be able to deliver that same level of quality, intentionalness, consideration in our product automatically makes it a surprise and delight. When you open that can and you have a margarita, you're like, okay, this isn't going to taste like a margarita from a great bar. And then you taste, and you're like, that tastes like a great margarita. And I think that we live for those moments of like exceeding expectations by a mile and wowing folks. And so that's kind of how we started this brand. Yeah.
So tell us, what is the name of the brand, the product, and when was it officially started?
Yeah, we're Straightaway Cocktails, and we have a sub-brand as well, our sister brand, called A Company, and we make Amaro and liqueur under that label, and we had to make those Amaros and liqueurs and vermouths in order to batch our cocktails. So we're pretty unique in that we literally build our own ingredient deck to make our cocktails.
Wow.
That's just kind of how far we go to get it right. We've been legal coming up on 5 years, but there was a good stint of bootlegging for about 5 years or 6 years prior to that. So we really started on this 11 years ago and had about 5 or 6 years to really test what we were doing, test the science of it, find out what our customer was wanting. So we kind of eased into it over a long period of time.
That's interesting.
What this is an interesting one because there's a couple of questions. I'm like, where did your passion come for this, and for the, you already said it. It's the experience of the delight and surprise and delight element. Where does that come from? Where did you discover that that's actually a really important part of what you do? Because even if it was a different product or service, if it was nothing to do with cocktails, you'd probably still be doing. I'm putting words in your mouth now. You'd probably want to still have this element of surprise and delight.
Yeah.
Right. You kind of feel that's important. Where did it all come from? Any of those things?
Great question. I haven't ever been asked that one. There's just a little bit of Willy Wonka that I think is fun to deliver for folks.
Yeah.
Like, we want to be surprised and delighted, right? We want discovery. And I think so much stuff is foisted on us, and that you can find a little brand or a little maker or a little bar or a little shop or whatever it is that you love, that you kind of feel like you're the one that found it or stumbled onto it, and it's way better, or it's exceeding your expectations on a ton of different levels. And there's so much intention and mindfulness around what that person's doing. Whether it's a food truck or you name it. I just think those little moments are magical, and we as people yearn for those, and they're hard to come by, and we want to do our level best to deliver that for folks one drink at a time. That's our way to do it, and through our little brand moments that we deliver as well. And I think just from why, I think beverage is fascinating. I've spent a lot of my career around beverage, and the way cocktails work, it's infinite. There are no limits. It's just imagination. And there are thousands of types of gins. There are thousands of types of amaros and liqueurs. You can make endless permutations of beverages just based on those two types of spirits right there, with different syrups or egg whites or not egg whites. And you're benefiting from the imagination of somebody who can consider all the ingredients and put together something really, truly magical. And I think that happens in bars all the time. There's surprise and delight all the time. I didn't know I was an egg white cocktail fan. Never knew that I was a Mezcal Negroni fan until this person made it so beautifully for me that I can't not love this drink. And I just think that that's a really fun part of the category that we're in. It's the exploration's endless in cocktail culture.
So we haven't really gone into it. We haven't. Is this the first time we've had an interview out of the 100 about this particular topic?
So the first interview today, the owner of a bar, Nikki.
Obviously, yes, that one.
Oh wait, it is Nikki?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was a great interview.
She's awesome.
It was fun.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
So my question is, how could I forget that?
Sorry, it's been a long couple days.
That's not really. I guess that's not even what I meant. I meant, like, this is an interesting idea. I like to go back to kind of this first principles. Regardless of the product, you're talking about something very similar. You're trying to do experimentation. You're trying to figure out what the right product that will surprise and delight customer. What is that process of building the magical surprise and delight product? What have you learned?
Yeah. How do you deconstruct something like that? That's a fascinating question. I think we start with what lights us up. Like, if we've experienced something or read about something that we love, and it's not always coming from cocktail culture. It can be coming from food. It can be coming from tea. It can be coming from coffee that inspires us. We're like, that's a really interesting way to think about building a beverage. And so we're influenced by a ton of different things. I think introducing folks to new ideas and new concepts through beverage is really fascinating. What they do in the UK might be like how far the gin tonic has become a science and an art form all at the same time. And same in Spain. I think that's really, really interesting. And I think we're inspired by geography, regionality, terroir. We have an amazing out this window, like you guys can see the mountains and the trees and how green and verdant it is here. We get some pretty amazing ingredients that we get to work from. And it's not typical that you have cocktails built with terroir. And that gives us license to use creativity in a really interesting way. You guys are in a really great spot here. That within 15 blocks, if you just threw a net around it, Smith Tea is right down the road. Jacobs and Salt is right down the road. Stumptown Coffee is our next door neighbor, where they produce all their cold brew coffee that we grab and turn into our coffee liqueur.
Wow.
Salt and Straw is producing right around the corner. It's a maker district, and we collaborate, we inspire each other, and I think that's a really long-winded answer to your question. But
no, it's a great answer.
But you
shows me
you tease a lot of different. You pull out of a lot of different places.
Yeah, so it sounds like some important, very important parts of your process is exploration, discovery, go visit places, read, study. I mean, hopefully you get lots of visits to Europe.
Yeah.
Go and do some inspiration. I think Kiln just did go to some big events themselves in London to go get inspired what other people are doing. So I think that's again a very, very interesting area. I've got one other question, but
yeah, go for it.
But you want to go? It's a little different.
Yeah, well, so it's just interesting, the level of detail that you go into with the ingredients, and as you mentioned, even collab, pulling from all the different things that are around you in the community, and I find that very interesting. But I'm also interested in just it sounds like that would be incredibly difficult, but also incredibly creative and fun. What have been some of the challenges that you faced in trying to get it to where you want it to be and get it to what it is today?
Yeah. I think building a brand from scratch and scaling it is inherently it's a big process, and you're pushing a big rock up a big hill. Yeah. It could be any number of things, like introducing your product one sip at a time is a really important concept for us, like getting liquid to lips to kind of dispel is that actually going to be a cocktail or not?
Yeah.
We need to meet the moment every single time with our customer and be there for them. So there's a lot of work that goes into, in Oregon, we're doing probably 250 events a year where we go out with the team and we're meeting customers at a farmer's market or a night market or a pop-up, secondhand clothing kind of, bazaar or marketplace or what. I'm butchering the term of what that would be, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. So I think just being really intentional about how you are building brand one customer at a time is a really important thing to focus on. It takes a lot of work to get that done and a lot of mindfulness and planning. I think those are big parts. We're never going to run out of ideas for cocktails. We have the opposite problem. We have to stop making cocktails because we just love making cocktails so much. So that isn't going to be an issue. I think it's just meeting the consumer where they're at and staying in front of them is probably the biggest thing that we strive to do. Since we launched 5 years ago, the country's gone through so many different things, and we've had a pandemic, and behaviors changed, consumer behaviors changed. Everybody was on e-com, then everybody was not on e-com, and we were doing virtual happy hours, and then we weren't, and we were making hand sanitizer when we needed to make hand sanitizer, and there's been so many obstacles and things that we've had to climb along the way. But I think that's what you expect when you start a brand, is that you're just going to have solutions that you have to find all the time.
Any pleasantly unexpected surprises in this process? Just something that you weren't expecting. You're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. For the brand.
Yeah.
We've had our handful of really cool moments for sure. I think I still think about we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary. You guys can walk up and see our tasting room after this. And the two first customers we had when we opened doors, we had this shop all built out and our retail wall with our cocktails were all up there, and we had some glassware. And the first two customers we had were these guys that had flown in from Amsterdam, UK, and France, and they were old college buddies. They rode their bike. They just landed in Portland, rode a bike across the bridge, saw our shop. I watched them put their bikes down. They crossed the road, came into our shop, and they bought 3 coupe glasses, I think is what they took home. They didn't buy any of our drinks. They just bought glassware, and they packed it and put it in their suitcases to send back home. And that was just, for whatever reason, I just loved that was our first transaction. I thought that was hysterical and really interesting. But the brand stopped them in their tracks, and they came over and purchased. For whatever reason, that came up in my mind when you asked me that. Partnering with Alaska Airlines has been enormous. And the fact that you can have our cocktails on every flight, our margarita and our old fashioned on every flight in the US with Alaska is really, was a magical moment for us.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I had mentioned our sister brand, which is a company, and that's what we build the Amaro and liqueur and vermouth under that banner. we'd been building it since we started, but we just hadn't labeled it and branded it yet. Those were our ingredients, our building blocks to make our drinks with. We launched that. And Amaro and liqueur are a European invention, right? Like they've been around for generations, and the chartreuse from the monks has been around since the 1500s in France. And generational knowledge, generational consumption, and getting the recipes right. We entered into the biggest spirits competition in the world. The most prestigious one is the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. Over 5,000 bottles are submitted every single year. They pick 6 best of shows, best whiskey, a best gin, the best tequila, you name it. And the best liqueur they tasted that year and honored with best of show was our Marigold liqueur. And I love that as a through line for the brand about how much we care about getting our cocktails right, because we only built Marigold as an ingredient to put in our paper plane and to make in an orange spritz, something like an Aperol spritz. I think that really kind of sums up Oregon and Portland in general, like just how far we go to get food and beverage right. That those guys considered us to be making the best liqueur in the world that year, and it was an ingredient for us.
That's incredible.
For the drinks we want to make.
Pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
There's
So there's some big ones that stand out.
Not an easy feat. When we had an interview with someone that is it Bobo?
It's a
Flapjack.
It's a kind of like an oat bar called Bobo's.
Oh yeah.
Which is a British. Flapjack is British, and there's this American coming and trying to do the same thing, but it's very well received as well. And I think that's what you've done, right? It's impressive. Did you have another question?
No, go for it, man.
Before we wrap up, time's flown. So let me. I don't know how to ask this question. So this is an interesting one. I didn't expect. Part of me didn't expect me to be able to ask really any questions because I don't drink alcohol. So. And it's an interesting concept. First of all, I find it kind of interesting just because it's a creative topic. This, I'm about experiential and experience, and actually that's what you do. I happen to think there's like a gap for where, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I think those that do not drink alcohol actually is that a customer or not? Well, clearly not. But no, I think they are for non-alcoholic cocktails. I don't know how you're going to receive this. But like, what is the opportunity there? Because I always felt like, I'm a very social person. And when we go out, when I was younger or business conferences, it was a long time where I'm like always going for this, like, it's obvious, like it's orange juice, it's Coke, it's water. Right. It's like, hello, I actually really like taste, and I really like imagination and experimentation. It was only when I started going to New York a few years ago, they had non-alcoholic cocktails. In fact, what's that name? Mocktails. And I would ask people for mocktail. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Mocktail. I'm like I want to be part of this. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Like a gap in the market for actually giving the same type of experience. Yeah. For those that really still like cocktails but not alcoholic. What do you think?
No, you're totally right. Like, if you were not a cocktail drinker and you arrived at a restaurant or a cocktail bar to be a part of a meeting or show up with friends, for a long time it was, are you gonna have a Shirley Temple? Are you gonna have a Dr. Pepper? Like, it's a soda, right? Yes. Or maybe some soda water with bitters in it, which is great. But that part of the category has erupted as well. Non-alcohol and non-alcohol spirits and cocktails are a thing. And if you go to the world's best bars or any great bars, they're making really complex, amazing non-alcoholic cocktails.
I need to get out a bit more. That's what you say. Yeah, it's been there for a while now.
Yeah, we have. Portland was home to the first West Coast all non-alcoholic cocktail bar called Sucker Punch. Nora First was helping write the menu for that. Nora's a part of our team, and the NA part of the movement is important to us. I would say watch the space for 2024 for our answer to that. We think about ourselves as being a great cocktail bar that you can have anytime, any place, and take anywhere with you. If someone's bellying up to the bar, they may not want something with spirits in it, and so we need to have an answer for that. And not to let too much of a cat out of the bag. That's something we're looking to solve for in 2024.
So what should I be asking for today for a non-alcoholic cocktail?
I will say, I do think can we visit your tasting room?
We'd love to have you guys.
I would love that.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's interesting because like it seems like this is becoming a theme of today. Like we could probably walk a couple blocks and we can go and visit, away days, or we can go and visit the tasting room.
Let's do it.
I think this is actually going to be really incredible.
We'd love for you guys to do that. And when you pop in, we'll have a little taste of that R&D that you can try.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah, a little sneak peek. On that front.
So just, I guess, 2 last questions then. How did you find yourself in this interview? Do you know someone at Kiln? Help me understand how you found yourself here on this couch today.
Why are we sitting here? Elise and Abby and Alexa have been our hosts since we signed up, and then they communicated to me, "Hey, this is happening, and we think you'd be great to talk to these folks." So it was an invite from the team up front.
Cool. And what do you think of Kiln? What do you think of the space? And in the community?
For us, it's been a game changer. Like we're pretty frugal about, starting our business, and we don't have office space. Like we have a back room and it's a communal set of desks, and it's kind of overwhelming back there. And to have this be 2 blocks down the road and our team can come down and find a nice quiet spot to meet and have a desk, it feels like we have an office now. We haven't for 5 years. And so the team is elated. It's a real asset to have this right here in the community, and it's in a great spot. They were really smart about putting this in this location, and the coffee shops are still going to be packed, but you can actually find a seat here, and you actually can get in and have a seat in the coffee shop, I think, now, because Kiln has taken some of that pressure off of the inner Southeast for office space and working spots.
For sure. That's great.
Before we get into the rest of the episode, we want to thank the partners and sponsors who made the Kiln Road Trip possible. The Kiln Road Trip is brought to you by Kiln. Kiln is a boutique co-working and flex office community with 13 locations in 6 states across the West, dedicated to providing innovative workspaces that empower your team to thrive. Whether you're a solo visionary or an enterprise-level team of up to 100, Kiln transcends being merely a place to work. It's a hub for learning and connecting with like-minded professionals that will make you and your team love where you work.
And if you haven't stepped foot inside a kiln yet, you really need to. On this road trip, we visited every single location, and trust us when we say once you see these beautifully designed spaces, meet the talented team, and connect with fellow members, you won't want to work anywhere else.
Locations include Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, California, and Arizona. And they're growing too, with multiple locations set to open in 2024.
Yeah, so be sure to check out the Kiln locations nearest you by booking a tour at kiln.com and answer Swell in the question, how did you hear about us? Once you complete the tour, you'll be entered into a competition where you could win a 1-year membership, their club membership at Kiln.
Yep, you heard that. That's kiln.com, book a tour, and be sure to mention Swell in the question, how did you hear about us?
The Kiln Road Trip is also brought to you by Moterra Camper Vans, a luxury camper van rental company for iconic road trips. Their top-of-the-line vans are available at 7 locations located near America's best outdoor adventure destinations. They have consistently earned the highest customer ratings in the industry, making Moterra camper vans your gateway to adventure without sacrificing on comfort or service.
That's true, and initially we wanted to take this journey in a 1960s VW bus, but thankfully we found Moterra instead. With 3 van options, we took the Pop Top Classic, which sleeps 4 and is best for those who want to maximize floor space and storage. This was critical for us because it needed to sleep the entire crew, we needed space to edit, and we were traveling with large amounts of equipment, luggage, and other goodies that we picked up along the way.
And this van took us through all 3,580 miles of the trip. Super comfortable and sweet to drive.
And actually, Moterra offers fully planned itineraries if you'd rather leave the planning to someone else.
Visit gomoterra.com/swell. That's gomoterra.com/swell.
This episode is also brought to you by Taurus. Taurus is leading the charge in home energy storage. Taurus makes it easy to achieve energy independence and a greener tomorrow. The Taurus station provides everything you need to generate clean power, efficiently store electricity, and easily manage your energy use.
And installing a Taurus station offers plenty of benefits, including save money on your electricity bill,
also ensure energy security with backup power during outages,
reduce carbon emissions with renewables.
You can also automate EV charging and HVAC systems with 100% renewables.
And enjoy unrivaled system monitoring and support.
If you like the sound of those benefits, get a quote to build your tourist station in less than 30 seconds. Super easy at tourist.co. That's TORUS.co. Now, let's get back to the episode.
And then our final question, we ask this to everybody that comes on our podcast, is what does it take to create something that's never existed before?
I mean, I think you have to do your thing and not really worry about what others are doing. Like, what matters to you, and follow that versus a construct that exists. And for us, this is the way I like to build brand, is follow what you believe in and what matters to you the most. I mean, what we're doing is so different. But I grew up by Mount Hood, in the Cascade foothills, right out the window. When you guys get up to a higher level, you can see it out that way, but way out in the forest. So my dad's out foraging fir needles off of the fir trees so that we make bitters for our Oregon Old Fashioned with fir needles. We're partnering with a orchard just south of Portland that grows filberts. If you're from Oregon, we call them filberts. When we export them, everybody knows them as a hazelnut. They're growing those hazelnuts and roasting those for us to put in our Oregon Old Fashioned. We're grabbing salt from Neatarts Bay on the Oregon coast from Jacobson Salt. None of those are things, or Snowtown's coffee from just around the block. Those aren't things that people would say, go do that. Like, we're doing that because we care so much about drinks and cocktails. And I think that's just, you follow your passion or your point of distinction, regardless of what a blueprint that's tried and true might look like. And you just put yourself on your path to what matters the most to you. And hopefully you have an audience out there that's recognizes it, appreciates it, wants to be a part of it. And that's always the thing you find out after you build your brand and roll it out there. Like, what's everybody going to do with this?
That's good. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Kiln Road Trip. Be sure to follow along on the rest of the journey, and you can do that in two ways. One, subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or maybe even watching on YouTube, and follow along on all of our social media platforms, whether you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok, at the Swell Pod. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.